Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. All right, so most things are just running in place in that way for a while. Notice interest rates are popping up here this morning. Not sure why. I haven't read news, but they're not breaking out. But they've been hanging here for a while. You can see my cursor. They're right at the top of the range there. And one of the things we've been talking about for, I guess, a couple of months now, the fact that they were coming down to this level where there was multiple pivots down here. As you can see, weekly chart. And the idea was, since they were moving up in 2022 and the dollar was moving up, markets were moving down, would they begin to push higher with the dollar? And well, a lot of starts and stops. And now this little section here over the last month and a half or so, just flatlining. And most things, except for a few stocks, the FANGs, been flatlining. So the gapping up here, I suppose they're going to be sellers up here, just the way it's been. We'll see how much they pull back. And let's just look at the dollar, because that was one of the only things that moved last week in, let's just say, in an authoritative way, breaking out above the range. It's down here this morning, was a little bit lower. We only got this little bit of dashes there, but it was earlier open significantly lower. So looking at the euro, a little bit more data there, you can see as dollar was bottoming out, this was, right, which way is it going to go? Is it going to break out, or is it going to roll over? Obviously, we can see it's rolled over, and we got a wide range bar down on the weekly. The distance between the highs is relatively close, which suggested momentum was slowing. And so here, this was a igniting bar, said it's going higher, and it was a nice move. There was your pullback, and then the concept of a greater than 100% retracement that says, hey, this thing's moved from, a logical level where buyers should be to one where sellers should be. And now what does it do? It can go sideways. But I thought as momentum slows, and then sideways could result in a push higher. And now it didn't. So the question becomes, if interest rates, right, the 10-year, breaks out above this range, does that correlation that we saw in 2022 take hold and markets move lower? And we all know, we've been talking also about the volatility index being at a low level, but it hasn't been lifting up. So those are the things I'd be putting alerts on, just to see if something of significance begins to happen other than these jiggles where interest rates take out the top of the range. And if the VIX starts moving up, of course, if those two things happen, markets should be moving lower. And as I said, so far, they're just marking time. Let's take a look at that. And so these spiders here, S&P 500 ETF, they were a little higher this morning, and now they're pulling back a little bit. They're just inside this range here. I've been talked about this head and shoulders pattern that is developed but doesn't move over the last week or so, this right shoulder there. So it's really just a trading range. We recognize this as supposedly being a bearish pattern. It is a distribution pattern, but it's because it's a breakout failure, right? The head of a head and shoulders pattern is a breakout failure, and then there's deep retracement, and then the right shoulder starts to roll over, but yet it isn't. And we've seen these two bottoming tail bars on everything on the weekly chart last week. Nothing in an inside week, just traded inside the range. How much more dead can it get? I don't, So I don't think you get that much more. Um, so I think something's got to give. So far, depending on what you look at, you say, well, you know what, it's going sideways at resistance. That's bullish. You got bottoming tail bars when it dips. That's bullish. You got this distribution pattern that's kind of bearish to neutral, and a lot of different sectors that you look at, especially financials, look more bearish. Tech still looks good. The theme of today, something's got to give, and that's what we're waiting for. Yeah, Tony, that's a way of saying it. It's battling here. Another way of saying it is it's indecision. Um, whatever, you know, people think, institutions think, they're still on the fence as to really committing. Um, and at some point, something will let go. So we saw the dollar move up last week. I think and then if interest rates move up, and look, these rhymes that we see in the markets, um, we have to go with them initially, but always have an open mind that sometimes these things disconnect. Why should interest rates begin to move up? Well, basically it's like, okay, you think that the economy is going to start doing better. I guess it really relates to interest rates, and that maybe the theme of more of the Fed is done. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but to start to think that things are going to be much better, even to the thought that at some point they'll ease with interest rates still at 5%. That doesn't seem like a reasonable idea to me. But I'm just waiting to see, does it break out? Do they break out above this range? And then, what is the market's reaction? What's the volatility index reaction? And of course, what do the S&Ps do? Do they break down from that range, or does that right shoulder prices start to move up? So the short of it is we're setting some alerts on markets that'll give us some guidance, and we're in a holding pattern. We're waiting. There's your futures, just tails on the top, tails on the bottom, inside bars. There's the top of the wide range bar there. There was the breakout that came all the way back down again, and nothing is happening meaningful at the moment. So SPX, things have been getting tighter and tighter as to where the strikes that we can trade be. And it's been working out, not very comfortable when they're that tight, because, we had some periods where it was no-brainers. I'm not so sure. And at this point, things are no-brainers. Hey, Jake, good to see you back. Yeah, 40.75 is where there's enough premium, and we say, where is that relative to these ranges? Because we always look at this as to, support and resistance. And 41.60 was the upside. I'm just changing the numbers. And, price is basically here. I mean, that's like a bunt. It's nothing. Things are tightening up now. 41.50 is a relatively large open interest in SPX, which you can see right here. And how much, getting above that drives it this way. And below 4,100, you can see it's not very far. These tails and things have been, bouncing back and forth here over the last week. And just like we look at support and resistance, these relatively large open interest levels act as support and resistance, and they can, once you get through them, it can help fuel things higher or lower. So it's something you're going to want to keep an eye on. With putting an alert at 4,100 and 4150, still tight range. But what I was going to say, whether you're using an open interest level as a reference point where prices could break and go higher, just like support and resistance, if those levels are close together, you can get an initial spurt and then it's going to, come back in again. Gamma says 4080 today should hold. Yeah, that's about, that's at the high of that range there. It's that about that swing high up there. And McGraw, this is one of the things that when you first introduced this gamma stuff to me and giving those levels, and I would say, well, somebody's looking at a chart, because it lines up exactly. These things line up exactly where, we would look at just based on the price action. And as we looked more into this, it kind of was based on the chart, but not directly. What do I mean by that? Well, because all the price action dictates everyone's biases and opinion. So when levels are seen where, say, prices can't get through a certain level a certain number of times or below a certain level a certain number of times, option traders looking at their gamma, Greeks, Vega, Theta, Delta, blah, da, 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 da. Right. It's all eventually revolving around price action where, they're coming to some conclusion there and start putting on all of their bets. So open interest are those open bets. And it eventually, it's got to be based on price action. So, when things get tight like this, you're winding that spring. And today, something I think this week, why this week, I don't know. But when things get as tight as they are here, and you can see that weekly bar, as small as it is inside a range, I think something's got to give. Now, that's a thought. It's a wish that we start seeing some, trending moves, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, below 4115. I mean, we got this mess here. So I think unless it can take out, these pivots, which is right where the 50 MA is, 40-50-ish, give or take, or it closes above 4,200. Not much of anything's going to be happening here. Yeah. All right. So let's look at our other markets as we always do. And so this is kind of grinding its way higher toward this pivot up here, and it's just been painfully slow. And I showed this chart in the letter. And so as you look at equally weighted NASDAQ 100, it looks like the rest of the market, maybe a little worse, actually. Nothing terrible, but you can see this little base that's forming under this base. And below this level, you get into like a little mini void there. And, you got levels that are so tight. You got the 200 MA there. And look at the 20 and the 50. It's another visual aid kind of thing to see things are just so stagnant, so much indecision and uncertainty that at some point you either got to say, let's go trade some other market that's moving, or just set an alerts and come back to it when things start moving, because this is not easy at all. It's not even why bother with something that isn't moving. All right. Small caps, same story, flip-flopping around, waiting to see which way they're going to go. The Dow, just as wild, down, up, down. I'm just kind of hanging down here. Bitcoin has been a bit weaker of late. It did close below those pivots and the 50. So, we'll keep an eye on that. That Ethereum ETF trade didn't work out. Things were looking great, but that's the market. Things change. Oil all over the place, back down to the lows and beginning to stabilize. We'll see, give it a little more time to see what it's going to do down here. Now that it's down at support, gold is hanging surprisingly relatively well compared to the dollar popping up as it did. But you can see the rejections that are happening up here. If the dollar keeps moving up, this should come down, and gold miners have already started to come down, and so has silver. That was a big down move. So see where things go. Set your alerts, and we'll see what's active today in the room, and we'll see what today brings in the rest of the week. For you, Dan.
Good morning. I think the next thing the market's watching is this stupid debt ceiling, the meeting more this week. And you know how we say we've seen that movie before, Halloween Part 84. That's what I've been saying. They're just gonna solve it the eve before and probably kick the can down the road for another couple months. That's what they do every time. Tudor Jones was talking. He thinks we're going to grind higher. The Fed's done, and I think the Fed's done too. But we're holding well here, 100% retracement at resistance. So if we break out daily, weekly, monthly, say higher, and we're technical traders, so we got to go with it. So even though the market's been in a coma last week, our individual trades, yeah, Greg, I'm still seeing yours too. You got to switch. There you go. Yeah. So even though, look how tight the spiders is here, we had a great week. Our advisory letter, I think, was 15 for 16. We're 7 for 8, I think, in the credit spreads. We only had one loss on that riot put spread. There's another pattern. It was fantastic. Gap breakout on earnings and deep retracement. Now it's up again, actually. So let's see here. I got a couple of alarms going off on new trades. Let's see if there's any earnings here, and then just my big watch list. No, these are not the earnings ones. Here we go. Here's earnings. Mindy, 150. Big gap, but nothing to do. Bottom right, Intuit is not earnings, but it's gapping down here. Gapping under this prior pivot low, so that's bouncing here a little bit. That's a call spread idea. MGOL here I have in the middle chart, gapping up from a multi-month bottoming pattern. But every time it goes, it doesn't get very far. So this could just be a classic pump and dumper, but I'll keep an eye on it. Cree short, yeah, it has to take out Friday's low, but sure. Gapping up here a little bit. UNG put spread. If there's juice, I've been watching this thing for a long time, and it just can't get off the mat. Really? IRS to do taxes for you? Greg, your mic is on. Are you saying something, or? Yeah, Biden, 87,000 migrants crossed the border last week, but he says there's no problem down there. Earnings CTLT. Opening flat. This would be an ideal 30-minute low. TSUM, this was one I said would have been a great put spread into earnings, which obviously we would have had to do Friday afternoon, but there was no juice. But this is a climactic buy setup in the earnings, so I like that. I'm going to put it in a window on my other computer. ES TPG. This is a, I really can't tell, but this would have been a beautiful sell setup if it opens flat. Sell setup, 2 topping tails. Last Wednesday we talked about turns. So this turned out to be a 1, 2, 3, a 5-bar turn sell setup, a bear 1, 2, 3. I just don't trust one print. So let me put TPG there. But if it opens flat, that's a good short under Friday's low. And this fray gapping up a little bit. If it gives it up and takes out Friday's low, that's short also. Sell setup. But it also, I don't know, it could also be the start of a bottoming pattern. CMRE opening flat, no pattern. Lissy gapping down, sell setup. Azul, no pattern. That's Brazilian airline. Potential bottoming pattern, but we got much better things to look at. Sandal, I think, is a marijuana stock. Big mess. TO extended. Garbage. All right, so no interest in earning stocks today. ADP. These are just miscellaneous things I'm watching now. Let me start down here. SRPT. That's a pro gap. Look where this thing's gapping to. Now, pro gap does not mean buy it or short it. It just means it's a pro gap. But that's excessive. But now it's bullish. Daily, weekly, monthly. It's a bio. SIGA. This is a bottoming pattern. A bearish 180, so it got whacked on Friday. But if it now trades above Friday's high, then we got a 180 breakout with a price for it. Target 650. AI, I noticed getting some action here this morning. Oh, I saw a headline that said Adobe is getting into AI. And I've been saying that in the green room for months now, that this just reminds me of the internet days, that these companies are just the new buzzwords. Hey, just say you're getting into AI and your stock will go up. CMCSA alarm just went off. This came from you,
And did you
Alex.
remember those ones I posted in the chat to you?
Oh, no, I didn't.
You should turn that alert on. I think
WDC put spread in here. Jose is asking about these. WDC put spread. The trade sheet does not show open into it. Well, it's because we're not into it. I'm saying it's a call spread watch. WDC put spread 35. Yeah, definitely. That's a nice one. Nice gap from a bottoming pattern, a little shock bar over that, over gapping over this red bar. And so now this is it's a double bottom now with a gap breakout. So yeah, that looks fantastic for a put spread, provided the spreads are tight and there's adequate premium. You got to go through your checklist, but the pattern, definitely. Stone, look, this grabbed my eye at first. Look at this multi-month bottoming, multi-year bottoming pattern. It's far from the 20 far is from the 50. Ideally, we would have been in it earlier over here where it's not as far from the 20, but yes, it's worthy of the list. Oracle, we are already in the position via long calls. So yeah, Oracle looks great. Sure, you can add to it. PGNY needs to settle down a little bit. You know, broke out from bottom to the top of the range and pulling back, but it came down hard. So just let it stabilize. HLIT, yeah, yeah, that's a 1, 2, 3. I did not see that in our 1, 2, 3 list, and I think the reason why is because of this big bottoming tail. But nevertheless, I'm interpreting the pattern identical. So yeah, I like that too. I just having Etsy alarm go off. This is a short setup. You see a pre-market here. So that's on my short watch list and call spread list. ICE baby. It's working on the right shoulder of an inverse head and shoulder. So that's bullish. Baidu. Kind of a double bottom, gapping up. If it can take out Thursday's high, then it has a monster void here. Or maybe a 1 to 3 day swing and a put spread. Lazar. I think this might have been earnings too. I'm not sure. I'm capping up to 6. Nah, no interest. I think that's one of those EV stocks, right? Same with this thing, Workhorse. Yeah, there's so many of these charts that are saying that they're not going to survive fundamentally. Same with Uber and Lyft. Look at poor Lyft. And from a daily, weekly, monthly look horrendous. And look at Uber. That is an amazing difference of fundamental, technical, fundamental being imputed in the technicals. So I don't even need to look at their fundamentals to confirm that. The stock's confirming that for me. ICE alarm just went off. PLD. So ICE 30-minute high maybe. PLD. Here's another one that broke out and came in. I just set an alarm. This would have been a put spread, but there was no juice. BEP alarm. Nice bullish consolidation here after breaking out. Bullish weekly. So that's I don't trade in the first 5 minutes, particularly on Mondays. So just watch some of these things for 5, 10, 15-minute high. Oh, really? My all right, the news 5-minute high. Yeah, my alarm didn't go off for some reason. So 5-minute high on Rost. Dollar Tree up alarm. We are long the stock and sold a third Friday. I mean, BDP you're in. Yeah, BDP looks good. Yeah, maybe I got that one on your list. I set an alarm. Skechers had an end of day rally, so you might get a better price. Hershey. Hershey. Why my alarm went off early? Okay, so I'm going to ignore that. Wait, Hershey. The entry is 275.89. Let me see if I marked it wrong. 275.89. No, I guess I just set the alarm wrong as well. Unless I just had a bad tick. No, I had it right, so I just had a bad tick as well. All right, I reset it. TSEM 30-minute high, maybe. TJX, we were shorting a put into earnings if you're so inclined. Wow, this pod, the spreads got ridiculous. Let's cancel pod. The spreads are ridiculous. If we try to get out of that thing. I was shorting 320 puts on pod. But spreads are ridiculous. So not only don't play that. Remember that from ITPG here, middle chart. On Saturday Night Live, only don't play that. In Living Color Days, right? Canceling. Yeah, Etsy alarm went off. Etsy, I wanted 69. Okay, so yeah, so Etsy's a go if it's filled. Well, it should have been filled on that tail. I wasn't watching it, Austin. I'm busy at the open, but it's a go. What's this TPG doing? Wow. Okay, see, so that's a gap and collapse. All right, it's G and K. Let's do 5-minute low instead. So under 13.